Hello, good afternoon. My name is Nassanga Clare. It's very good to have you. Today we are going to have a conversation on the relationships between communities, energy, and justice. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how these issues play out in your experience. Maybe you could give us a brief introduction about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Ali Ogwang, and I'm the climate advocate. I'm part of the N4C field by Uganda. Yes, and mostly we look at advocating for climate justice and to enable the community transition to a clean energy.
So, Ali, it's good to have you. And on your background that you've given us, I know this is going to be a very interesting discussion with you. And with our first question, in relation to energy specifically, which communities do you think bear the heaviest energy burdens and how is that measured?
Thank you so much for the question. Yeah, it is really an interesting question because mostly if you look at the SDG 7 that talks about affordable and renewable energy. So we find out that under the UN principle say that the communities that face the energy burdens, we call that energy poverty. So mostly we concentrate on the rural and refugee settings. So instead of going far, I'm going to concentrate mostly in Uganda. We'll find that mostly the women in areas like Ajimani, Chotera, we find that they walk long distances to go and collect fire because most of them rely heavily on biomass for cooking, for lighting, and then you find that those alternatives are not really healthy, and then that's why we should really advocate for the just transition in those areas. Yeah.
You have given us a picture or an imagination of the people that are mostly affected. For example, the women in Ajumani moving long distances to access things like firewood. But could you be more specific on how these communities that are most impacted, how it's measured, or how you come to such statistics that these are the most affected people?
So mostly, if I'm really to relate to one of the experiences that I had, you find that one of the options, maybe alternatives that I will have to easily transition to clean for clean methods is usage of solar. But then you find that solar is not really subsidized. And then someone will be like, okay, if the solar cost of the small one is at, let's say, maybe 150,000, and someone look at buying charcoal that's maybe around 3,000. So they will look at easier option. I mean, there will be like the long-term effect of that. And then you'd also find that another challenge is you'd find under the statistics will tell you that Uganda is 70% transitioning to clean energy. But then you find that some of these areas, like in the low income areas, you find that it's really like there's an energy poverty in these areas. And then because of that, you'd find that electricity that we are covered, that you have to subscribe to monthly, maybe you're paying around 5,000. At the end of the year, you find that the amount of money that is amounted is about 3 million. And then now you find that mostly it is estimated in kilowatts. Yes. Yeah, that's another electricity regulatory authority.
So, Ali, you have noticed that the poorer communities, women, or certain groups of people tend to suffer more from things like dirty energy, extreme heat, or lack of reliable energy. Could you share what that looks like from your experience? Or maybe, if I'm to be more specific, how do citing air quality, heat island, and energy insecurity intersect with race, class, and gender?
Regarding to that, if you look at the SDG 3 that talks about good health and well-being, but then if you have to go to 3.1 and 3.9, that must will look at reduction in mortality rates related to chemicals and pollution in air and water. So most of the statistics you might find that the World Health Organization would be the one like that will have like most of the data, and then mostly if you to engage with the community and then we carry out survey, and then you have to ask them that like if you test me like at the end of the year, maybe annually, how many deaths are related to pollution, most of them will be like 5, like 10, but then you find that it's really high. Why? Because you find that most of the activities that we do, for example, if you're heading to Kasangati via Chira, Chalwajara, you find that they're constructing the road there. It's a Maram road. But then as they're constructing, like there's a lot of dust. And then, when you inhale those, they call them, because, under greenhouse gases, the most common, I think, there is carbon that is well known. But then we also have the PM2.5, that's the particulate matter. That is mostly spoken about, and it's really small, smaller than even the hair fall. So mostly you find that this are really hazardous to our health. But then someone can only say that this place is it's maybe densely populated by, let's say, that polluted due to, let's say, maybe visibility. But then as pollution, you cannot really estimate that by, you can't really say it visible to the eyes. Yeah, so now most we find that it's really a challenge. That's why I think if we can really work with maybe the government, yeah, collective action, and then yeah, we can maybe advocate for, yeah, for changes, for systematic changes in our community. Yes.
In relation to what you've just shared with us on how people are actually affected in our day-to-day life, that you might not actually notice that you're being affected by these pollution sightings, what are some of the energy policies or projects that could be designed to mitigate these challenges or to put people at the front of projects before they are started?
Yeah, that's really so interesting. If you were to look at the policies, because those are one of the things that maybe govern like the standards that we follow. So I also remember so recent, I also took part of like one of the youth who took part in a review of the 2007 energy policy, and then we identified gaps in that policy whereby we found that there are cross-cutting issues where the women were not organized, the youth were not organized, and then because that we also take area, we find that something like solar energy and like let's say maintenance and installation, like mostly we are not involved on, because yeah, because mostly I think we are relying so much on hydropower, and yeah, so I think that was last year. So I think maybe just have to follow up and then see if some of those issues were really updated. Yeah, because let's say we really need to sensitize the community, because you find that in some of the areas where people are really constructing wetlands, but then as you know, like the wetlands that they have, like there's a process that happens in the night whereby wetlands like capture like carbon sink, so we capture carbon and we make the rivers like methane. Because of the rapid like climate change that is overflowing, and then the global warming, you find that now there are also high rates of leakages of methane in the atmosphere. And then you also find that another thing is the women also really move long distances because they rely so much on biomass. Yeah, that is so they move long distances to go and collect firewood and then use it for cooking and all that. So now I think we should have policies that can easily, let's say, work together with the community and then maybe subsidize solar cooking stoves. Yeah, so they can make them affordable. Also another thing, also maybe installation of grid systems in some of the rural areas. Because you know that some rural areas, like, they cannot really access electricity because of the network and transport.
Well, Ali, that was a very interesting submission talking about policymakers, how they should work with the various communities and how they will be able to identify the missing gaps with this. Now, talking about community projects and community consent, when a big project like a pipeline, a power plant, or a solar farm is planned for a community, what do you think that this community deserves to know, deserves to say, or to receive in return? And what does it look like when communities are truly included in such decisions?
Yeah, it is still an interesting question. I'm also looking to hit on the pipeline, because if I look at the East Africa pipeline that has been a burden to the community, and then there's also like it's still an ongoing case. Yes, because it started, I think, that might have been like 20 years ago. Yes. So you find out that, like, the way they first approached the community, they first started by, because now in the community, like, we have like the local councils, we have like representatives, like the LC1, the LC5, and then from there we also have the PAL, we have the RDC. Now the RDC also works as the, basically the president of the district. Yeah, but then as total energies, that because the project is under they came with the papers and saying that the government of Uganda, the way they the right to buy that. So that coming as let's say, as that like with the output that we used to reach out to the community, and then in order to start out their extraction, like extraction and construction of the pipeline, they found out that like the method that they used, there was no something like consent, there was no transparency. Most of the things that were there was intimidation and torture. And then you find that for a land that 1 acre of land is valued at 3 million. But then you find that like if you look at other areas, 1 acre of land would be like maybe 20 million. So like they were really undervalued. And then for these people who refuse to sign in order to give out their land, some of them I think were even arrested. And then who can you go and talk to? You go to the government, yet that's the one who gave them the right. So I think another thing that really brought let's say change. I think it was through collaboration with I guess like a joint movement. I think that was through the global eco and also the resilience within the community. So I think mostly it's about it goes beyond like being invited at the table for the children. I think the government should also be able to influence this decision, yeah, and then say that okay, if I'm giving you my land, let's say question of my land for you take my land for 3 years. So but then when you come back and then you want to like let's say when you come back and then you want like 100 meters. But then in the paper you check obviously you sign and then it kind of affects us. Why? Because they find that there is human rights violation, there is biodiversity loss. So now you find that this is a really big issue, and then it's also still going on in the court. I remember they were taking to to France, but still I'm in doing this. So I think the community should like the concern that should happen there, and they should basically should they should support the community, they should take the community as subjects. Not to, I think it's 2005. Yeah.
Ali, you have talked about the EHO project in Uganda and how it have impacted various people, wildlife, biodiversity, communities, and how it's actually continuing to do that. And as climate activists, we have also seen such challenges and people being arrested, and whoever actually stands up against this project facing such consequences of maybe being arrested and just being silenced and not speaking loud. I would like you to maybe share more on what these various communities deserve to know before such projects are put in place in their areas and what they deserve to receive in return.
Yes, I think yeah, in that scenario, I think the community, I think one of the things that they should be aware of is maybe to ask like how is it going to affect us, not only as a person, how is it going to affect like my animal, because we find out that maybe my cattle in the farm, how is it going to affect our like our properties. Because you find that however much these people who had already accepted to give up their land, and then maybe into competition that they could. And then you find that maybe for areas that let's say for the nearby, like the nearby community in the area, you find that at times when people here are carrying out their activities and maybe you find that the construction and the excavation mostly like there's that vibration that would upset the wildlife ecosystem, and then like elephants attacking people. And then you also find that maybe also in the night, like they have security lights when they are working. So you're like a cattle in the farm might think that it's already daytime, and then now they'll start moving, and then that's just another effect. And then you also find that it also leads also to the operation blocked also the roads, access to roads. So I think something that should be there, like the community should see how they can benefit, which means that they can work their projects, and then let's say maybe they are transparent. They can maybe work on the roads in the community. They put up maybe rehabilitation facilities, maybe for the for the kind of as the work is ongoing, like one of the issues that we also have, we kind of maybe someone is sick, they have to go to maybe to the pharmacy or maybe to the hospital. They find that there are not enough drugs. Yeah. So I think like maybe those are one of the things. I also think it also led to what the total to reevaluate their things, they are giving us all that process, and then they're coming up with other programs that okay, it's greenwashing, but are supporting the community. They have programs, many books, many beekeeping, and this and supporting, but yeah, still they also make them to revise and then to see how the community can also really benefit from that, not going to be a total loss, and to see how the community supports.
As we move away from community consent and awareness in these projects that are being brought in their places, as climate activists, most of the work that we do is create advocacy, awareness, and empowering these communities to make them know that they're actually part of the solution to the climate crisis, to make them stand up for the justice they're looking for, and also be part of the just energy transition. So, in regards to that, have you ever seen or heard of a situation where a community spoke up about a project that was going to affect them and something actually changed as a result? And what happened? And what made the difference?
Yes, if you look at, I think that was in 2023, whereby there was a protest, like same Bugoma Forest was involved. So it was whereby the government had given very much the limited, I think a portion of the Bugoma Forest, something like about 120 miles, I don't know how many hectares are there. Yeah, but then the community stood up. And then on top of that, you find that like NEMA, like also I'm on NEMA was like NEMA that should have carried out the environment impact assessment and social impact assessment. Like most of them were not really on the side of the community. So I think under a few of the organization, so they had to draft like a report, and then they had to pass it to the NEMA, like another tool to evaluate like how it's going to impact the community. Because as you know, like most of like the forest cover, it's like it's like the rain catchment area. So it means like it's a vital part in our ecosystem. So because of that, like I feel like those people in the solar were always not only to also income, but like they were also always like we had to match and then we had to save the Goma forest. Because as you know, like this, like their plan was to put up like a sugar plantation in the area, but as you also know, like in Uganda, how much ever like we export sugar in other areas, but the cost of sugar here is still high. So now the point was like, how am I going to benefit? How are they going to benefit from that? So yeah, that is something that can really show how how the solidarity that is in that area.
Well, that's a very interesting example because a lot of activists here in Uganda stood with those various communities to stand and be there for the campaign to save Bugoma Forest. And I personally was also part of it. And to follow up on that, I would like to ask you on what way do you think we can replicate such actions or solutions in various communities that are facing such challenges but maybe do not know how to stand up for themselves?
It's really so interesting that you were also part of the activists that stood up to say freedom of affairs and that's what happened here. Yes, so I think like one of the things that really drove my interest about solidarity and also collaboration with other organizations, NGOs. Yes, however much that like now the government is trying to attack the NGOs right now with policies that would only be in their interest. Yeah, but then I think we should still push for that and we shouldn't be demotivated us. Yes. So I think with a field that also like most of the focus is in research and also like also since like also training of activists, also providing let's say legal legal lawyers or yeah, in the courts. So I think mostly it comes to if you can work together with the community leaders and also the organizations that are there and really fully support them, not only to end up with them, but we should also follow up here after that and also get also evidence because I know like I think mostly it's about collecting information and evidence, so which means when the community is really willing to share on what really oppresses them the most, what really concerns them. So I think mostly it's about looking out for organizations that yeah, like the NGOs that are in the area possibly really stand up and create change.
Ali, you talked about earlier how people are being impacted by pollution, being their health is actually at risk with these various community projects that are affecting the environment and the people as well. But the statistics or the data that's out there is less than what is actually happening on the ground. So I would like to ask you in relation to that how can data in relation to health, pollution, and bills be collected ethically and also used for advocacy so that we receive the change that we're looking for?
I think yeah, you know that for maybe an organization or yeah, maybe a CSO to go into in the community, maybe let's say they've already identified the problem, and then like maybe their plan is maybe to carry out an initiative, to better support the community. So I think the best way in order to like in order to safeguard the community and yeah and the people there, I think it's about being transparent with them and then them know what they're going to use my data for. Okay, my information that I'm giving, what they're going to use it for, how is it going to affect me? And then if there comes at a time whereby I'm not comfortable with my information being public there, yes, do I have the right like for you to take it down or not? Yes, so I think that is also comes to I don't know if you're going around City Square, there you could see there's a billboard that normally plays that normally identifies. I think they use GIS that identify like the pollution in that area. So you find that like for that to be possible, they'll be like, okay, we're looking at Kampala metropolitan area. Let's go and collect that in that area. So through engaging the community, okay, like each and every person carrying out that survey to enable them to collect that data, and then it could also the data that is shared will enable you to know, okay, what is now the like what is now the rate of pollution in this kind of area. Is it safe for me to go? Or maybe let's say I want to put up my like a home of mine, and then will I be like, okay, maybe I'm asthmatic or something like that. So will it be safe for me? Or maybe the government wants to put up maybe a maternal home for mothers and children. Like is like the best place to put an area, like to put up a facility in that area. So I think it all comes back to like the information that we're collecting, like how are we going to use it, and the person whom I'm collecting it from, like are they safe from that, and what I'm sharing to them, how is it going to impact them? Yes, so I think it comes to trust and also like maintaining the relationship. Yes, because with the changes in the weather patterns, we still come back to time to investigate. So I think yeah, with the people who are carrying out that, I think there is Airco and the Institute and also Blue Square. So they have like these devices that monitor the pollution in the area. Yeah, so I think it's one of the things that we should really advocate for greater awareness.
You have talked about building trust and maintaining relationships between these data collectors and also the communities. So how do you think that these communities can build this partnership with the researchers, advocates, policymakers, or the government to amplify their voices without losing control over their narrative?
Yes, I think it's mostly about sharing your findings with the community. Yes, and also yeah, and also maybe the CSOs in the area. Yes, because you find that as a researcher going into the community, interacting with the community leader or anyone there. So you'd find that whatever that I've collected, like who am I going to take it to and how am I going to use them. So if I'm trying to support them, but maybe another organization that is out there, let's say that, for example, let's say maybe there's a parent organization, maybe in the overseas. So which means that if I'm trying if I'm trying to lobby like for support for them, like how is this information that actually going to be used? So I think they should collaborate with the researchers, the NGOs that are in the area, and also with the government for them to be it's also not something that is really easy because yes, because we find that most of the communities like that they're not really exposed and really aware of what's really going on, and then we have laws that or policies that are there that can really support them. Like there's the due diligence law that is about I think conservation of, of forests, the biodiversity, and also human rights, like human rights awareness. So you find that like some of these laws, they are there, but then you find that the community are not really aware, and then make also some of the terminologies are really complex. So I think the researchers should be there to share their findings with this other organization, and they are out, they are crisis. So what we do is and also how the government yeah, can also take part in that.
Well, thank you everyone for listening in, wherever you are. It has been an interesting discussion with Ali. I've learned a lot from his expertise, especially the emphasis on SDGs and also the importance of our leaders, the policymakers, and researchers to be more considerate of these different communities where they are putting the community projects, and also the fact that the on-ground evidence and examples are actually more than what is being reported. So we beg and request the government, policymakers, and all researchers to put people on the planet first in whichever activities they bring into these communities, and that a just transition or a just energy transition should not be negotiable. It should be a must for these communities.
Yes, thank you so much, and it has really been a pleasure. Yes, to be able to share my perspectives. Yes, on these matters that we already discussed, and also I'm also eager to see how this research and also what I've shared will also be able to create a positive change. Yes.